Hey guys, what's going on? Just wanted to give you a quick overview of what's inside the College Basketball Recruiting Handbook for those of you that are interested. Let's start off with the purpose statement, and the whole reason why I wrote this book was just to help basketball players with the college recruiting process. We all know that college recruiting doesn't take rocket science, but it does require some effort and it does require some planning. So the whole purpose of this handbook is just to help players take notes, write down important dates, information, coaches' information, and things like that that can help them with their college recruitment. Taking a look here at the table of contents, we have the contact info for Texas basketball scouts and player info, important dates, important links, player accomplishments, your top 10 college list, some college info, high school basketball game stats, notes, contacts, and some of your goals. And we'll go through each one of these a little bit more in depth. Here's the contact information for Texas basketball scouts. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. This page right here is dedicated towards the player. Now, the College Basketball Recruiting Handbook is geared for one individual player. So this page right here is where the player can write down their important information like height, weight, what their GPA is, SAT scores, NCAA ID number, and their NAIA ID number. This is important information that college coaches would want to know before they can even think about making an offer. Below, you see there's areas for season stats. So this could be just a summary of how your high school seasons have gone. So you can fill in the year like 2018, 2019 season and basically put in just a summary of your overall games played, maybe your average points per game, average assists per game, rebounds, steals, and blocks. This is just going to give you a talking point. So if you are talking to a coach, you can say, look, coach, this last season, I played this many games and I scored an average of this many points, just to give the coach a better idea of what kind of player you are. The next section here is where you can talk about important dates. So we all know it's important that, you have to take your SAT or your ACT and also fill out things like the FAFSA, which can help you with your student aid. So this section right here is designed just so that you can write down those important dates so you won't forget. And then you can also fill in some notes like what you scored on those tests. Some players also see value in attending different basketball camps. And sometimes, the best types of camps are the ones that are actually offered by the colleges themselves, because you get an opportunity to meet the coaches in person, shake their hands, introduce yourself, and start to develop that relationship. So this section, if you do want to attend any kind of basketball camps, you can write down the name of the camp, the college that's offering it, the date, what time it is, and how much it costs. There's also opportunities for players to attend events like basketball showcases or certain tournaments that will allow them to kind of showcase their skills in front of other coaches. So if you do know of a couple of good, reputable showcases or tournaments that you want to play in, this bottom section here is where you can write down that information just so that you can do a little bit more planning. You can write down information like what's the name of the showcase, who's hosting the event, what date it's on, and also how much it costs. The next section here is about the important links. My recommendation is never take just information that you hear from people. If you want to get the real answer, you need to go straight to the source. So these links here will take you straight to the source for the different divisions: NCAA, NAIA, and the NJCAA, which is also commonly referred to as the JUCO. So these links right here is where you can go directly to find more information about the division, the eligibility center, and also things that players can do to better prepare to make that transition from high school to college. This section is for the player accomplishments and awards. Again, this is just something that players can write down just to help build their own personal resumes. So if you were All-State, or if you were top scorer, or if you were the captain of your team, or if you started playing varsity since you were a freshman, these are just little talking points that you can write down that, again, you can share with coaches when you start to have those conversations. This right here is the meat and potatoes of the actual handbook. And I'll read this to you verbatim. High school players and transfer students need to create a list of at least 10 different colleges that they want to attend. This is important because this is where you actually start to form your game plan. Okay. So we know that there's different divisions: NCAA, D1, D2, D3, the NAIA divisions, and the JUCO divisions. One thing that's very important that players must understand is that you need to pick schools that match up with your playing ability. If you are not an NCAA D1 athlete, then why would you waste your time reaching out to schools that are NCAA D1? We know those are tough levels of competition. So if you want to save yourself time, be realistic and choose schools that align with your playing ability. So when it comes to creating this game plan, you need to create a list of at least 10 different schools. Okay. And why? Because what you're going to do is over the course of your high school career, you're going to reach out and develop and maintain relationships with all 10 of these schools until you find one that sees enough value in you to make you a scholarship offer. If you only have one school on your list and that one school doesn't have any available positions, or you're not good enough to play at that school, then you're basically not giving yourself a good chance to play. So make a list of at least 10 schools. And this page right here just gives you an easy area where you can list all 10 of the schools that you choose, what city they're in, what state they're in, and then also what division they are: NCAA, D1, NAIA, JUCO, etc. The following pages is where you can actually write down more detailed information about each school. So in this list, you can name your top 10 schools. And then the following 10 pages is where you can actually write down detailed information for each university: the name of the college, where it's located, what division it's in, what the school code is. Because whenever you take these standardized tests like ACT, SAT, and you're filling out your financial aid forms, you need to put the school code for whatever school you want to send that information to. So here's where you can write down the school code so that when you do take those tests or fill out those forms, you'll know exactly what school codes to use when you're submitting that information. Also, each school usually has a recruiting questionnaire that players can fill out. And these recruiting questionnaires have a lot of information. You do have to divulge a lot of your own personal information, but you have to do it in confidence, knowing that it's going to go to the school, because that's how the school collects their leads. Okay. If you fill out these questionnaires, the recruiting questionnaires, the coaches will get your information, and therefore they can mail you things. They can, send you an email. They can follow up with you. But this just makes it one step easier for the college coaches to know who you are. Again, I also recommend that you send personal emails and you make personal phone calls to the coaching staffs, but it's also important that you fill out the recruiting questionnaires just so that they can have your information on file. Going down the page, you can see that you can write down the information for the different coaches, like the head coach, associate head coach, assistant coaches, director of operations, graduate assistant, strength coach, and you can write down like their name, phone number, email. And some of you may know and may not know, but the head coaches rarely do the initial part of the recruiting process. They usually delegate that task to one of the assistant coaches or the recruiting coordinator. So those are probably going to be the most important people that you introduce yourself initially, because they're the ones that are in charge of the recruiting. So whenever you do find a school, make sure that you find that staff member that's in charge of the recruiting so that you can start to develop that relationship. Now we have the area where you can write down some of your high school basketball game stats. Again, this section is only important for talking points, right? When you send an email to a college coach and you say, "Hey coach, this is, what I did, this last season or last game, or during the playoffs, this is how I did." This section right here is where you can write down detailed game stats for your individual games. So let's just say that you had a playoff game. You can fill in who's the home team, the away team, what's the date, location, what the final score was, and then what your individual stats were. How many points you scored, assists, rebounds, steals, and blocks. Again, this would just be important because let's just say that you had a playoff game, and let's just say that you had a triple double. You scored 20 points, you had 10 assists and 10 rebounds. Well, if you write this stuff down, when you send the coach an email, you can say, "Hey coach, Just wanted to let you know I had a great game yesterday. I had a triple-double. I scored 20 points. I had 10 assists and I had 10 rebounds. And I just wanted to share this information with you. Again, this is going to help you let the coach know how he can help to paint a better picture of what kind of player you are. And there's space in here for you to write down stats from 10 games because, again, if you only had one game where you played exceptionally well, that's great, but it's better if you have more examples of that to show how consistent you are. So let's just say you had 10 games where you had triple doubles. You'd be able to write all this information down and share it with the coach. The notes section is just designed to give players an area where they can just jot down some certain notes that may help them with their college recruitment. Again, it's not dedicated for anything in particular, but throughout the high school career and the college recruiting journey, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to want to take notes, or you might learn something that you think is going to benefit you down the road. So that's what this section of the handbook is designed for, so that you can just write down important notes that you can reference later on. Contacts. We all know that getting a college scholarship and recruiting is dependent on your grades. It's dependent on your playing ability in the sport, but it's also going to be important that you have good contacts, that help you out along the way. So this section is where you can just write down different contact information. So if you meet somebody at a tournament, or you meet a coach at a showcase, or you meet a recruiting coordinator somewhere, you can just simply write down some of your contacts, name, phone number, and some notes. That way you don't forget, and you can always reach out to them if you have questions. For those of you that are old school, it'd kind of be like a Rolodex or some kind of directory that you have for just important contacts that you've met along the way. The next session also has a contact log. So it's going to be important that you keep notes because, like we mentioned before, you're going to have a list of 10 schools that you want to reach out to. And let's just say that you're reaching out to these 10 schools over the course of your high school career. So from when you're a freshman to when you're a senior in high school. It's going to be important that you take notes on the different contacts that you've made so that you can keep things in order. And also, you don't want to bombard the coaches with too many calls or too much information. You want to just write down, and if you want to just write down your contact log, and you can reference this to see, hey, when was the last time that I emailed this coach? Or when was the last time that I called this coach just to say hello? This section right here will allow you to write down the date, and then you can also take some detailed notes on what the conversation was about, or if there's any follow-up items that you'll need to do. I'm a firm believer in having goals, and this section right here might be one of the most important parts of the book, aside from the top 10 college list, of course. But write down your personal goals. People always say that when you write down your goals, that they're more likely to come true because you make that commitment and you write them down. So as a high school basketball player, or as a current college player that's trying to transfer, let's get serious about your college recruitment. Okay, make a list of your personal goals. Do you want to go to an NCAA D1 school? Do you want to start off at a smaller school and transfer after a couple of years? What are your personal goals? And nobody can tell you what those are except you. So once you decide what those are, write them down, and this way you can always reference them. And sometimes when times get hard or you're feeling discouraged, you can turn to this goals section and look at your goals and see what keeps you motivated. Again, very important that we write down our goals so that we can stick to them and that we can all accomplish our goals. That completes the summary of the College Basketball Recruiting Handbook. Again, my name is Boris Davis. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and read the summary of the book. And if you are interested in purchasing a copy of the book, it's available on Amazon.com. You can just search for the College Basketball Recruiting Handbook by Boris Davis. It will show up in Amazon. It's on Prime. You can order it and get it shipped out directly to you. And again, I'm here if you have any questions. So feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, give you some guidance, point you in the right direction. And again, I'm here to help, improve, and inspire positive change within the basketball community.